Okay, now we're going to get into the Daled crisis. Now, just to give a little background, the Gemara says like this. The Gemara says that Daled Kasi Tekina Rabbanon. The Rabbanon Masakim to have 4 kaises of wine. Now, why 4 kaises of wine?
It's working.
It's working, okay, good. Okay, so why? So why 4 kaises of wine? So there are many reasons given, obviously. Reasons given why we do 4 kaises of wine, but we all know because it says 4 lashonos of gula, right? There are 4 lashonos of gula. V'tzeisi v'irtzalti v'galti v'lakachti, right? 4 lashonos, and connected that you have 4 cups of wine. The Rashi, the Rashbam and Rashi over there bring down another reason, which is based on the Yerushalmi, that there are 3 cups of wine mentioned in the dream of the Sar HaMashkin and right had by the Sarifim that they had by Paroi, but Sar HaMashkin had that he's going to pour into the cup of Paroi. And connected that we have 3 kaises of wine, okay, and connected that you have 3 kaises and you have one more.
You mentioned about the kettle before. I was trying to get the camera working.
Yeah.
Is it just the balabas that wears the kettle, or is all the males there? Where's the kettle at Pesach?
That's a good question. So usually anyone that's married, anyone that's married will wear a kettle. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What?
Not men. That's the kind of.
Yeah. What does it bring down? So the 4th one, I think, is.
Those who define themselves as male.
Thank you for clarifying that point. You're right.
Doesn't bring it down here, but Uncle Panim, and I think the fourth one is for the Kiddush.
There are also the basic, almost all these things that you do are to provoke questioning.
Yes, so we'll see that later. It doesn't say that over here by the wine.
Well, you wouldn't say it then, the first cup.
We have a lot of things that are 4 here, actually, right? Because we have the 4 cups of wine, right? And you have the 4 kashas, if they are manashtani. You have the 4 banim, the 4 children. You have the 4 lashonos of gula. You have 4 chachamim that sat in Bnei Brak. Rabbi Akiva, with Rabbi Akiva, there are 4 chachamim that sat by Rabbi Akiva. You have the 4 types of people. You have kulanu chachamim, kulanu nevoidim, kulanu zakenim, kulanu yodim esatayra. It's also back in the 4 times Baruch Hamak and Baruch Hu, right? Baruch Shem Stella Maisol Baruch Hu. So it says 4 times Baruch. You have 4 psukim that the whole Agada is based off. Arami Yeviravi, we'll get to that when we get to Magid, but it's based off 4 psukim in the Torah, the whole Agada. Okay, there were 4 days before Pesach. They took the Korban Pesach. They needed Bikur for 4 days. That's Shabbos Agada. They tied it onto the bed 4 days before. So you have a lot of things that are in the place of 4. So you have to know what it stands for. There are some that say that it's connected the 4 letters. Eli Rabbi brings down it's connected the 4 letters of the Shem Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Obviously, Obviously, there's a reason for this. Why it's in 4? You have to understand this. But that's but the main reason we have is the 4 lashonos of Geula, which the Netziv explains that Geula happened in 4 stages. That after Makas Arav, Paro thought, you know what? Maybe he's getting punished because he's being too hard on Klal Yisrael. So he's not going to let them go, but he'll ease off the slavery. He'll ease off the work. So he did that slowly but surely. Then after Makas Barad, it says the Torah switches the language. And the Torah used to say Pari would refer to Klal Yisrael as Ha'am, the nation, and after that he refers to them as Bnei Yisrael. So they got more stature in Pari's eyes after Barad. So that was the next stage that that's for Yitzalti. So he totally removed the avodah from them. Now they were considered Bnei Yisrael. Then the next stage was after Makas B'chayris, when they actually were considered free, but they were still in Mitzrayim. And the next stage was Lakachti, which actually took place by Matan Torah. We'll discuss that. But they became Klal Yisrael, a nation for Hashem. Lakachti Yaisim Lam. So the 4 stages of the Geula, and that's why we have 4 kaises. Now we have something in the Torah called the questions of the Torah now, but we have something called a mitzvah of Haseba. The mitzvah of Haseba is to lean generally when we drink the Dalet Kaisis and when we eat the matzah, and one can lean during the rest of the meal also, basically. So the mitzvah of leaning for the Seder is, according to the Rambam, the way the Rambam understands it, is a mitzvah of Zucharta. It's part of the mitzvah of remembering that you were an Eved in Mitzrayim. And how do you remember? So we all say a person is chayav luris asatzma. A person has to see himself as if he went out of Mitzrayim. That's always $1 million question. How do you see yourself as if you went out of Mitzrayim? How do you do that? So the simple pshat is, you have to see that you went out of Mitzrayim. You have to, really put it into your heart and mind to understand that you went out of Mitzrayim. And we'll have to get back to that later. But that's a main part of the going on in the Seder. That you have to feel that you went out of Mitzrayim. The Rambam has a different girsa. You have to show laharis. You have to show that you went out of Mitzrayim. So you actually have to put on a show. So the Rambam says you makayim this because it's a mitzvah in the Torah that you should remember you went out of Mitzrayim. You do that mitzvah by actually leaning when you drink the kaisis. So when you lean, you're showing that's a way of chayris. So you're showing your freedom, and you do that by the Dalet kaisis, and you do that by the matzah.
Which you're supposed to concentrate and see some time.
Yeah, there's a mitzvah every day to remember you went out of Mitzrayim.
There's a certain pasuk in it that says.
I would say it's Mitzrayim. Yeah. But
isn't leaning part of the normal thing? Like everybody, when they were at a feast, there would be lounge chairs. Basically. Yeah.
So what we say in the Manishtana, we say b'chol haleilos anu achlin bein mesubin bein shloi mesubin. And all days we eat, sometimes leaning, sometimes not leaning. So it wasn't that they always leaned, but on Pesach you have to lean. So that's where it shows the chayrus. But you're right. Today we don't generally lean, and the question is, do you have to lean by the Seder? Because today nobody leads. And we're going to get into that also, the halachas of today, whether it's ma'akiv to lean, because it's not something you can normally do. But according to the Rambam, it's actually part of the showing the chayrus. So you're going to be missing the main part if you don't actually lean. But we're going to get back to that. I'm just bringing this in for a reason. We'll see shortly. So we have a mitzvah to drink 4 kaises. We have a mitzvah to drink 4 kaises of wine. Now, we spread them out over the Seder, okay? So the first kais of wine is done by Kiddush, right? You do Kaddish, you make a first cup of wine. The second cup of wine is done after the Hamagid, when they say the Haggadah, we do a bracha at the end. Asher golonu v'gol havasenu, and then we make a bar pregafim during the second cup of wine. The third cup of wine is by what? By benching, which many people, even throughout the year, it's actually machlokes in Gemara whether there's a chiyuv to have a kais shel bracha by benching. every benching in the year. There could be a zechiyah to have a kaishal bracha. We're noyeg today not to necessarily have a kaishal bracha by benching, right? Unless you have a minion, some people do it. But there's a mitzvah to have a kaishal bracha by benching. So by Pesach, that's where we put the third kais. And the fourth kais we do after Halal. Now, Tosfos says something very interesting. Tosfos in Arei Pesachim says that how many people have to have this kais? Does everybody at the Seder have to have the kais? Or just the balabas? He says, just like by Kiddush. Kiddush Friday night, does everybody have a kais? Do all the men, the kids, the women, the children, everybody has kais? Or just the balabais has a kais and he makes Kiddush? And then, if people want to drink from it, he passes around. If they don't want to drink from it, they also Yaitse Kiddush. They don't have to drink from the kais, they Yaitse Kiddush anyways. Because the Mishnah says that it says that you're mechuyev to give for the ani layivchas le'miyarba kaisis. That's the lashon of the Mishnah. It's that layivchas la, you can't give less. Ani that gets money from the kupa, from the to feed his family, takes money, sudas from the kupa of tzedakah. So you can't give less. The Gabi has to make sure to give him to have 4 kaises of wine.
But the Seder is different. The 4 cups have mitzvah attached to it. It's each one individually.
Yeah.
You might to somebody on.
Oh wait. So, wait. Hold on. So Tosfos says that it's mashman and mishman layivchasu loy. You don't have to give him less than 4 kaises. So maybe only him. Not what about the rest of his family? It almost sounds like Tosfos says in the Mishnah, you only have to give the balabais the 4 cups, and everybody's yoytze with him. So Tosfos has a long discussion about it. The Brisker Rav says, we see in Tosfos something fascinating. You see that Tosfos learns the mitzvah of daled kaises is not necessarily a mitzvah to drink a daled kaises, but it's a mitzvah like Kiddush, which is to do a bracha on the kais. Just like Kiddush, the main thing is to do a bracha on the kais. So I could be yoytze your Kiddush because you made a bracha and I was shemei kain, I heard it, and I was yoytze the mitzvah. So even if I don't drink the cup, but if you made Kiddush on a cup and then you drink it, then I'm yoytze the mitzvah also. Now, obviously, let's say for example, matzah. If I say you eat matzah, and I'll be yoytze with you eating matzah, you know what I mean? It's hard to get matzahs this year, so I'll eat the matzah, and then everybody else in the family will be yoytze with my matzah. Obviously, that doesn't work. Every mitzvah shebeguf, a mitzvah that you have to do with your own guf, you can't be moitzi someone, it doesn't work. So I have to eat the matzah, he has to eat. Everybody has a mitzvah to eat the matzah. So if the daled kaisis is a mitzvah shtiyas hakais, the main thing is to drink the kais to show yecheres. Oh, we're drinking a cup of wine to show our freedom that we went out of Mitzrayim. So it's no question that each individual would have to drink his own cup of wine. But yet Tosfos seems to say, not so fast. Perhaps that one guy can drink the cup of wine, and everybody else could be yoytze. So there seems to be a very integral machlokes here, the Tosfos and the Rambam, actually. The Rambam says each person has to drink. The machlokes, what the mitzvah of daled kaisis is. Is the mitzvah of daled kaisis a mitzvah just to drink wine, 4 cups of wine, derecheres, or is a mitzvah of daled kaisis that you have to do a bracha on the kais? Now, halacha l'maisa, besides the fact that Tosfos has this chiddush that maybe everybody could be yoytze from 1 cup, which is a little bit of a chiddush, but there are a lot of other nafkaminas in this discussion, and we'll go through them because it's very relevant. Obviously, we paskin that each person has to have his own cup of wine. Each person has to have his own cup of wine. But
you can make a bracha without drinking. How could it be just a bracha? How could you make it yoytze and not drink?
Bracha is the kiddush. So you make the kiddush.
You have to drink.
No, the balabais will drink, but everybody else will be yoytze. So this sounds interesting, yeah. But let's understand Tosfos fully over here. We're doing kiddush ala kais, okay? That means the 4 kaises that the Rabbanan were mechayiv during the Seder is not just drinking 4 cups of wine. That means you have to do a mitzvah on it. You do kiddush on the kais. You do the haggadah on the kais, and then you make a bracha shel golanu. You do the benching ala kais. And then you do the halal ala kais. So it's not just drink. Let's say, for whatever reason I can't do halal or I can't do benchik. You're allergic to weed, you can't eat, you can't do benching. So just drink a cup of wine. Wait a second. Just drink a cup of wine. The mitzvah is to do a bracha ala kais. So you have a whole new dimension in what the dalat kaises are. Now, so let me give a few nafkaminas. How much of the kais do you need to drink? So, what many Rishonim learned that no, you don't drink roiv kais, malei lugmav. Like by kiddush, you drink a malei lugmav. Okay. So according to that, if you have to drink only a malei lugmav, if it's
yeah.
So you drink this machlokes. So Shulchan Aruch brings machlokes over here. How much you have to drink, and it's totally in this. If it's a dinner bracha on the kais, so like every kais you have to drink some of the kais. The halachas all over, kiddush, benching, all the halachas of shtiyas, kais is malei lugmav. That's all you have to drink. Malei lugmav is a chickful, so roiv revius. That's all you have to drink. No matter how big your kais are, you can get a big, huge kais. All I have to drink is a malei lugmav. But the Rambam says no. You have to drink roiv of the whole kais, because since the mitzvah is a shtiyas hakais, is to drink the kais, so you have to drink roiv of your kais. It's not enough to drink a malei lugmav. It's not enough to drink just a mouthful. That's another machlokes depending on it. Now, here's where the complications got. Let's say, we mentioned last week, let's say the guy made kiddush and he forgot to say the Shabbos kiddush. He said Yom Tov without Shabbos, Shabbos without Yom Tov. What does he do? Let's say the guy made kiddush. He did a good job. Made kiddush. He said everything right. And it happens. It's going to happen. This year, someone's going to do. He's going to drink without leaning. Now, what's the halacha if you drink without doing the heseba? So the Machaber says like this: Kol mi shetzorech haseba, whoever needs to do haseba, ochal or shasa b'lo haseba, if he ate or drank without doing haseba, lo yotzer, he's not yotzei. V'tzorech lachzor lecho v'lishtos be'haseba. Okay, he has to go drink again be'haseba. You're not yotzei, you're kais if you drank it without haseba. Now, there is a machlokes which kais needs haseba. But the Chulchan we paskin that all four do. The first two or the last two. But Chulchan we do all. So if this guy drank kiddush, for example, and he didn't do a seba, then he says, "Hey, wait a second, I have to drink a seba." Now I got a question. So let's say he has to drink it again, and we'll discuss it soon because there's another issue of drinking again. But I got a question for you. You don't make kiddush again. You can't make kiddush again. You are yotzei kiddush. Kiddush you said properly ala kais. Right, you made good kiddush on a kais. You just didn't drink the kais b'aseba. If the mitzvah is to drink the kais b'aseba, good. So I didn't do my mitzvah of drinking the kais b'aseba, but I had to mess up my kiddush ala kais. There's always two things going on in unison over here. There's the bracha ala kais, and then there's drinking the aseba. So obviously I don't have to make kiddush again. I just have to refill my kais and drink it b'aseba. Wow. Right?
Who refills? Someone else has to refill.
Well, it doesn't matter.
At that point.
And how much do you have to drink?
Now, you're not allowed to drink 5 kaises. You're not allowed, you're not allowed to add on to the. But I wasn't yotzei my kais. If I was yotzei my kais, if I was yotzei, then I'm not allowed to drink a 5th kais.
Oh, I see.
But if it's considered a 5th kais, maybe I'm just drinking wine during the meal. That's during the meal I'm allowed to drink wine. So we'll discuss that.
Not between 1 and 2.
Not between 3 and 4 I can't add. Between 1 and 2, it's a big machlokes. We'll see. But let's just assume it's a big machlokes between 1 and 2. Are you allowed to drink again? But because what's the problem? If I do drink, it's going to look like I'm adding on another kais. But here's not a problem of adding on another kais. Because I did my first kais, I wasn't yotzei.
That's exactly what you're doing. You're adding another kais. Yeah.
I'm adding another kais, but it's not adding because the first one didn't count. I'm drinking 4 cups of wine. The first cup I drank, I wasn't yotzei with. It didn't count. It's the only problem of adding if I have 4 that count.
Well, finished though.
It's more than an obstacle. It has to be for real. In other words, if I have a kais, this is what the Rosh says. If I wasn't yotzei my kais, so then I could go do it again. And I'm not. If I drink without a seba, I'm not yotzei my kais, so I have to go do it again. not a problem. But I'm just pointing out that the kiddush that I made ala kais ufitoisis worked with the first kais. So my 4 kaises of kiddush ala kais and my 4 kaises that I'm drinking, Be'aseba, are not the same 4 cups of wine. I can have 8 cups of wine, 4 I have the bracha on, and 4 I drink because I forgot to drink the first 4 Be'aseba, you know. So there are 2 things going on with each kais.
After repeating it the first 2 times.
So you don't say the bracha again?
You don't say the bracha again. Now we'll have to talk about the Bar Piyagaf and what they say again.
We're
going to have to talk about the Bar Piyagaf, but the Kiddush you don't say again. Now, to understand whether you make a Bar Piyagaf again, and we discussed this briefly last week, but you're not allowed to add on to the cups, right? So you can't add on. So now, but what's called adding on another cup of wine? So if I don't make a Bar Piyagaf beforehand, it doesn't look like I'm adding on another cup. I'm just continuing drinking. Now, many Rishonim hold that many Rishonim hold, and the Sfardim, I believe, do this. They don't make a bracha on the second cup of wine. We make a Bar Piyagaf on each one of the 4 cups of wine that we drink in the Seder. Right? Now, you could ask, why are you making a Bar Piyagaf? I had already made a Bar Piyagaf. You never make 2 Bar Piyagafs when you drink 2 cups of wine. On Purim, every cup of wine you make another Bar Piyagaf. You don't do that. But so the Sfardim only make a Bar Piyagaf on the first on Kiddush, and after they bench, they have to make another one because they benched. But they don't make a Bar Piyagaf on the second cup of wine, and they don't make a Bar Piyagaf on the 4th cup of wine. But we make a Bar Piyagaf on each cup of wine.
That's after benching. The 4th cup.
No, the 3rd.
Third.
Third. So the 4th is even further after benching. So
you already made a Bar Piyagaf on the 3rd cup.
But you signed off. You've
made a Bar Piyagaf after benching.
You logged off with the benching.
No, you made benching, and then you make a Bar Piyagaf and you drink your 3rd cup, right?
Yeah.
So you just made a Bar Piyagaf on your 3rd cup.
Yeah.
So why are you making a Bar Piyagaf on the 4th cup?
Because benching is intervened.
It's not. It's before the 3rd cup.
Second.
It's after.
You make the Bar Piyagaf after you bench. Right? Whenever you bench ala kais.
Yeah.
So when do you make the Bar Piyagaf? After you bench.
Right,
Yeah, so you make a Bar Piyagaf on the 4th. So the 2nd cup and the 4th cup should not need a bracha. But we make a bracha on all 4 cups. Okay, now there's 2 reasons given, and this is very important to remember these 2 reasons because we'll come back to it. One reason is because maybe it's a big hefsek. There's a long Haggadah. And not only is Haggadah a hefsek because of the time, but we show him say, Mishti Yubruchi Bahadi Adadi Lo Yefsher. You can't eat and talk at the same. Some people could, but some could. I was talking to some about a minion davening. Like he says, he'd love to come to the koil minion, but he likes to take a coffee in the middle of davening, and he feels funny coming up with the coffee and then sitting on the table and drinking in the middle of Psukei de Zimra. So obviously, some people have the ability to talk and drink at the same time, but Gemara says, "Mishti brucha b'hadi adadi yefsher." So that's considered a hefsek. So if you have a hefsek, so you have to make a new bracha. Now this is a big sugya. We're not going to get into the whole thing. There's kashus on it. So the other Rishonim say a different svara. They say a svara that since Abed Kasi Tekinu Rabbanan, since the Rabbanan made a takana that there should be 4 distinct different kaises, so each one requires a new Bar Piyagaf. Kol chad v'chad anav mitzvah. So since each kais is a mitzvah an pei nafshay, that's the lashon of the rif. Each one is a mitzvah by itself. So each one it's a unique thing by itself, and it's not connected to the previous kais. In other words, normally if I drink, so I make a bracha and I continue drinking, it's part of the same meal. It's part of the same achila and shtia. But here, where I'm making a separate, where there's a separate mitzvah in each one, so I don't see it connected to the first one. Therefore, I have to make a new Bar Piyagaf on each one. Okay, so I make a separate Bar Piyagaf on each kais. So the question would be, fine. What about between the kaises? Let's say I need a drink between the first and second kais. Now it may not even be a Bar Piyagaf. Allah is if I make a Bar Piyagaf on a kiddush, and I drink a whole cup of wine, and now I want to have a drink of water or juice. So you don't make a shahakal. You yotzei the shahakal with the hagafen. Okay, If I want to make a solid shackle, I want to have a piece of herring, I have to make a shackle. But
you have to keep in mind.
What?
You have to keep in mind when you're making kiddush that you're going to have something to drink later.
It's included. I plan on eating and drinking. So when I make kiddush, so when I make a bar pekov, that patters the other shackles, the other drinks. So let's say in middle of the Haggadah, it's a long Haggadah, and my throat gets starting to get dry, and I want to have a drink of water. So do I have to make a shahakol? Well, I already made a bar pekov before, and that's and I could drink now a cup of water. So I made kiddush, so I could drink already, right? So the Ikar Halacha is between the first two kaises you're allowed to drink. You're allowed to drink between the first two kaises. Between the second and third kais, of course I'm allowed to drink. It's the middle of my meal. Between the third and fourth kais, I'm not allowed to drink. That's hollow. You're not allowed to drink a middle hollow. Then you're allowed to drink. So between the first and second kais, I'm allowed to drink. Between the second and third kais, I'm allowed to drink. But between the third and fourth, I'm not allowed to drink. And some say this is part of the remez. The first kais, veitzesi, veitzalti, v'ga'alti, v'lokachti, between the geula and the lakicha, between the getting out of Mitzrayim and the lakicha, Hashem takes us for a nation with Matan Torah, there shouldn't be any hefsek. Because you can't separate them. A person can't go out of Mitzrayim to party, He's going out of Mitzrayim in order for one purpose, in order to serve Hashem. That you can't separate. Between the others, you can take a break, but you can't take a break between the third and fourth kais. They have to be as close to each other. So in any case,
when you can drink, but not wine, no? In between the first and second.
What?
When you say you can drink between the first and second.
So not between the third and fourth.
No, but that's between the first and second.
Yeah.
Drink anything?
Oh wait.
Can you drink wine or other things?
Oh, so hold on. So Me'ikra din, you're allowed to drink between the first and second wine. Now the problem is halacha says, the Mechaber says like this: if you want to drink, you're allowed to drink. You should be very careful not to drink between the first and second cup wine. Why? You shouldn't get shikar. It's a long break until the meal. If you drink too much wine, you're going to get a little woozy. Some people aren't used to drinking so much wine, and they drink a heavy wine the first cup, and by the middle of the Haggadah, they'll have head start spinning,
Especially if you fasted.
But that's just drinking.
Yeah.
That's just drinking
wine.
alcohol.
Right.
There's no problem with drinking water or something.
Right.
And grape juice.
So that's what it says. Smash madafka wine or schnapps, But to drink a regular drink, you'd be allowed to drink.
What's the din on grape juice? Is that considered?
That's a very good question. That's an excellent question.
It was his question.
Yeah, I'm not sure the answer to that. It seems that the minhag was not to drink wine, which seems to include grape juice. But l'chayra, if you'd be allowed to drink grape juice, it would take care of our problem here, which I'm about to explain. So the problem is like this. The problem is that if you're not going to drink, if the minhag is that you're not going to drink any wine, so when you made your Bari Pri Hagafen, you have no intention of drinking again wine until your next Bari Pri Hagafen, because we, Ashkenazim, make another Bari Pri Hagafen by the second cup of wine, right? So then what's going to happen is like this. Let's say you remembered in the middle of the Haggadah, you remembered, hey, I didn't lean by the first cup of wine. I didn't lean by the Kiddush, so I have to drink another cup of wine. But I didn't have in mind to drink another cup of wine. And therefore I'm going to have to make another Bari Pri Hagafen now when I drink the second cup of wine. And then if I make another Bari Pri Hagafen, that looks like, that's nearer Kamoisef ala Kaisis. That looks like I'm adding on to another Kais. Now,
leaning is very uncomfortable.
One second. That looks, I just want to finish the thought here. So that looks like I'm making a new Kais. If I drink without making a new bracha, that looks like a hemshech. Okay, I drank 1 cup, 2 cups, it's all part of my first cup. But if I have to make a new Bari Pri Hagafen, that looks like I'm adding a kais. Now, technically, that's not the end of the world, because I have to add a kais, because I wasn't yoitz in my first kais, we said before. But we'll see that since the minhag is today, nobody leans ever, so the Rav Yah says, really, the Rav Yah holds there's no chiv aseba today. Okay? Rav Yah holds we're not mechayiv to lean today, because who leans? Who leans anymore? There's nobody, at least in this side of the world, there's nobody that leans when they drink, the Rav Yah.
Rav Yah.
Rav Yah.
Who's that?
Rav Yah.
Rav Yah.
go down in the Mordechai. So he says that we don't lean, and for that reason, the woman had a minhag not to lean, because like we once mentioned, there's certain things the woman paskin like certain shitas, and we paskin like other shitas. So the woman paskin like the Rav Yah, and they don't lean. Yeah.
So
today I think women do lean. But there are other reasons why women. The Mechaber says Isha ain't tzricha seiba unless she's chashuva. She doesn't have to lean because she has the fear of her husband. Today the women don't have any fear of their husbands. They had the fear.
They have a different fear, because if you don't lean, the person next to you is going to be in your lap.
So the woman, unless she's a isha chashuva, so then chashuva would lean. But that's what Mechaber says. A woman doesn't need to lean. And the Ramah says all our women are considered chashuva. That's why all our women lean. But because they were saimach on the divrei Rav Yah. They hold like the Rav Yah. That bisman hazeh you don't have to lean. So the men, we don't hold like the Rav Yah. So we lean. But the women hold like the Rav Yah. So many of them don't lean. I'm not sure what the prevalent minhag is, but there's some that don't lean and some that taka lean. They don't go with this Rav Yah. So
but no men hold by this.
But the men lean. But since it's a valid shita, so if you forgot to lean,
You can rely on the.
you say, okay, according to Rav Yah, I was yotzei. I mean, the woman rely on him, so but the Eved, I was yotzei. Okay, but why do we want to be yotzei but the Eved? So I'll do it again on lean. But now we get into a problem. Since maybe I was ready yotzei the first kais, and now I'm going to make a boy priyagofen and drink again another cup of wine to lean. That could be nira kemoisef al kais. Now it could look like I'm having a fifth kais.
So what if
I wasn't yotzei the first kais, then I could do it again. But if I was yotzei the first kais, and now I'm going to make a boy priyagofen and lean, I'm running into a problem. So therefore, the Ramah says you shouldn't lean. Don't drink another cup. But if you have in mind that you want to drink water and a person should have in mind when he makes kiddush, that in case he's thirsty, he'll drink some water. So he's not giving up on his bracha b'oi priyagofen, then this guy's going to have in mind that in case he wants to drink, he'll drink during the between the first two kaises. And then he won't have to make another b'oi priyagofen. This way, if he forgot to lean, he could drink another couple of wine and leaning, and he wouldn't have a problem. That's what the Mishabur says.
When during the Suda?
Do it between the first two kaises.
If a person didn't know about this other shita, and then stood up and made a public declaration and said, I forgot to lean, I'm going to... This is not going to be a fifth kais.
No, that doesn't depend on his declaration. It depends on the halacha. If the halacha is it's a fifth kais, if he was ready yotzei, he was ready yotzei.
It doesn't matter what he says.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what he says. Yeah.
What if your leaning is very uncomfortable? You're going to fall off your chair. There's no side.
You're not yotzei leaning. People that lean like this are not yotzei leaning.
Yeah. So what
if you only have a regular chair like this kind of chair, you got to turn it this way, and you lean. You lean.
Oh, it's the first time I heard about turning the chair.
Yeah. Oh no, it's okay. A little bit, yeah. A little bit. If it's low enough. It's low enough.
A side.
Yeah. But leaning on nothing is not leaning. You have to lean on something. So try leaning on your friend.
Lean on the table.
Right or left?
Lean on the table.
Yeah, but it shouldn't lean like this. This looks like you're worried. It doesn't look like chayris. This looks like you know.
You lean on right or left side?
Because the government.
Left side.
Even if you're lefty?
Yeah. Now,
Otherwise, the person next to you is going to have your head in their lap.
Everybody has to lean the same direction.
Email to the shirt.
It's also the way you drink. It's also the way the digestive system works.
The check. No, it was right.
okay. So that's the 4 cases of wine. That's what we do.
It's a check with.
Can you make like a declaration up front saying my intent is to lean, but if I forget, I'll follow the Rabbi?
Now, okay. Sorry. Fine. So that's kaddish. So we make kaddish. Oh, I'm sorry, the 4 kaisis, just to go back a moment, the 4 kaisis that Rashi says, that the Rishalmi says, the first 3 kaisis are against Keneged the 3 kaisis of Pari in the dream of the Saramashkin. The 4th one is the Birchas Hamazon, it's the one for Betshin. So Rishalmi says. The question is what that has to do with Pesach, that you have, yeah. Now, okay, so now we'll go to Kaddish Orchatz. We'll go to Orchatz. So we wash the hands. And we're washing the hands to dip the karpas into salt water. So now we dip it into salt water. The Rambam actually likes to dip it into charoises. Why should I dip it into charoises? Why should I dip it into charoises? The Rambam says the charoises you dip everything into charoises. Now the reason why we have the charoises is because because that takes away the poison of the lettuce. The Gemara says chasa. One of the moras is chasa's lettuce, right? And it has a certain sharp poison into it, and the charoises takes away from it. Now, they used to use sometimes in the Mishnah. Sometimes they used for karpas some of the mora. That got into a whole shiloh. You eat mora by the karpas, then you're going to make an halachilus mora later. But that's what it says. They used to use the chazeres. They used to use the same vegetable that they used for the mara. They would use sometimes for the karpas, and therefore there's some of the meaning to dip it into. Ramas, you always dip into charoises, and the Rashbam also has like that.
I saw in one where you do that, but you shake it. Said shake it off.
Yeah, we do that by the mara also. Shake it off.
Shake it off. Yeah.
Did I read something?
So the Rosh says like this. The Rosh says even if you want to use the lettuce for the karpas, but you don't have to dip it into charoises. Why not? Because it's not really a problem of poison, because we eat lettuce all year long in our salads, and we're not dipping it in charoises, and everybody's surviving good and well. So even though the reason why we dip into charoises is because of the poison that's in the maror, but we somehow don't have a problem eating it all year. We romaine lettuce, we eat all kinds of lettuce, and we never dip it into charoises, and therefore, so if you want to dip it karpas, then you could dip it into salt water, and you don't have to worry about the poison. It's only about a mara we're concerned. Why? He says, because since that's a mitzvah, the tibul sheni, the mara is a mitzvah to dip in, so we're more worried about sakana by a mitzvah. And he brings down very interesting here. He brings down from the Leket Yosher, from Trumas Hadesh and Hilchas Chanukah, that if you're staying by a guy's house, like Hanukkah, and you want to light the menorah there, so you should only light 2 neiros, one for the shamash and one for the ner, even if it's on the 8th day, for example. Why? Because sometimes too many candles come to a sakana to make a fire. Okay, but all year we always light more than 1 candle on Hanukkah. We light 8 candles. All of a sudden, in the guy's house, you're only going to light less. So come out a gnai for the mitzvah. So he says, he brings a raya from the Morar on Leil Pesach that you dip in charoises, that even though all year we eat it, we're not worried about sakana. We light candles all year, we're not worried about sakana. But when you're doing a mitzvah, where it could come out a gnai to the mitzvah. This guy lit a mitzvah, and now look what came out of fire from it. So it could come out a gnai for the mitzvah. So we're much more worried about the issues. You know, sometimes there's a 0.00000 chashash, 1 chashash. Okay, so we're not concerned about it.
Why do we light in our house on the mitzvah?
What's that? So there's a very small chashash, but we're not worried about it normally. But when it comes to a mitzvah, we start worrying about these things.
Well, in the house it's a mitzvah. Hanukkah.
Oh, why Hanukkah in the house? Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Shabbos candles in the hospital.
Yeah.
Shabbos candles in the hospital.
Yeah. So therefore, he's saying like this. Therefore, the charoises, to dip in charoises, so that the dipping the mar. Here's a point. Dipping the mar in the charoises, that's a mitzvah. So there, we're worried about. So you have to do in charoises. But the karpas, that's not really a mitzvah. We'll get to it in a minute. That's not really a mitzvah. So that even though you're going to use the same vegetable as the maror, but you don't have to dip into charaisis. Dip into salt water. That's how we know you dip into salt water. Anyways, we don't usually use the maror. We use other things, but you dip it into salt water. The tibul, why are we dipping it in? Why are we dipping in the karpas? Because the children should ask, right? So it's not a mitzvah. Some say it is a mitzvah. It says we dip twice, but it's it's not like a part of the maror. It's a mitzvah achilas maror. You have a mitzvah achilas maror. The karpas is just like to get the seder going, to get people to start asking questions, because they ask questions. So therefore, that doesn't have the same level of mitzvah. They put in, and this could have a very big nafkamina. How big of a piece of karpas do you have to eat? So everybody's knowing less than the kazayas. Some people say, no, you have to eat a kazayas. Some Rishonim say you have to eat a kazayas. You know why? Because every achilas mitzvah is a kazayas. When do we have an achilas mitzvah that's less than a kazayas? You don't have such a thing. An achilas mitzvah that's less than a kazayas. So, what?
So yeah, we just said carpet is not a mitzvah.
So if it's not a mitzvah, so you don't have to eat a kazayas. If it's considered a mitzvah, then you would have to eat a kazayas. Now, so okay. So now getting back to, we'll come back to this moment. Getting back to orchatz. So we wash our hands. Why do we wash our hands? So we know there's halacha that something which is tibule b'mashka, something which you dip into water, you have to wash your hands before you eat it. And the reason is, just like we wash our hands before we eat bread, because our hands have a din of a tumah sheni. Our hands are generally considered midrabanan. Chazal made a tumah on your hands, a sheni tumah. So if it touches if you would touch food with your hands without washing it, it would make that food a shlishi, third level of tumah. Now, without getting into the whole hilchos tumah, we'll go to it in the morning a little bit. But food, we don't care if food is a shlishi, because food cannot become a shlishi. Only truma could. Truma and kachim can become a shlishi. But actually, if your hands are wet, or if you touch water, the mashka becomes a rishon, and then the food becomes a sheni. The food becomes a sheni, and this is a problem of who cares if the food is tamei. This is a problem again by truma and kachim. So today, there's really no reason to care if it's tamei, but Bizman HaMikdash there was a very big concern, and Chazal Masakin that when you eat bread, you wash your hands, and if you eat any vegetable that's tibule b'mashka, that you dip into water, that you need to wash your hands for that. Now, the guidelines of this halacha, we're not going to get into fully, but sufficient to say that most people are not noyig in this halacha. There's another question, why not? Why are we talking not noyig that? There are very rare few that are taka makbid on this halacha. There are a rare few that are. What? Yeah, you do it? Oh, there you go. So there's a rare few, Mendel.
No, I thought you had to do it.
I'm talking about every day you eat an apple. You wash your hands before you eat an apple. Yeah.
Wash my hands.
So there you go, Mendel does.
That's halacha.
The oilam is not noyig b'chlal to do that. And
it's a madrega.
And we don't do it all year. So the question is why by Pesach all of a sudden we're being makbid on this halacha, the Taz.
Then you have the Korban Pesach.
Hold on. So the Taz asked this question. The Taz says he doesn't know why everybody's not makbid all year. All of a sudden by Pesach we become from and all year not. He says, and if you hold it's a chumrah, so you should do it by Aseres Yimei Tshuva when we do the chumras. Why Pesach night all of a sudden we're doing it? So this is a question. So some say you're right. We're not mechuyev to do it. Chak Yaakov says, no, you're not mechuyev to wash your hands. And the reason why we do it in Pesach is also that the children should ask. Children should ask the answer for all the questions. Mm-hmm. So the children should ask. We want to do a change, so we're washing the hands before the things. But Eina Hanami, you don't have to wash it because you're dipping it in mashka. You're washing it because the children should ask the question, why are you washing your hands? And it happens to be there's a minig. Many people have the minig that only the balabais washes his hands. Not everybody. Why only the balabais washes his hands? Because that's enough for the children to ask. Everybody else who dips it in doesn't wash his hands. But in Mendel's house, for sure, everybody's washing their hands. But because if you're washing your hands, so you shouldn't touch it when it's wet. So everybody has the same problem. It's not just a balabais.
But you wash without a bracha.
Without a bracha.
But even at the time.
Oh yeah. So we're going to get to that question. We're going to answer your question about the bracha. But we wash without a bracha.
No, but I'm saying if. For people like
Mendel,
you make a bracha when you wash your hands?
No, he doesn't make a bracha. No. So okay, so that's it. But the Netziv says, this is what he was saying over here. The Netziv says that by Pesach night we're imagining, we're living, going out of Mitzrayim. We're imagining we have the Korban Pesach by us, and when we have the Korban Pesach, we have to be makbid on all the halachas of Kodshim. You have Kodshim, it could become Tameh. So therefore, there's an extra precaution to even though all year we're not makbid on washing our hands before we dip in. But Pesach night there's a Korban Pesach here. Okay? So we have to be careful to wash our hands. We were doing mamish the same way we did it when we were in the Beis HaMikdash, and then for sure we washed our hands before we dipped in to the thing.
So there's your link with Pesach.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're going to need Tahara.
Right.
That was from the Kior, no? That was a different reason.
What?
The Kior was a reason because eating?
No, that was for Avodah. No, but your hands are shiny. You have to wash your hands before you touch anything that could just catch you. So that's what the Netziv says. Okay, now, do you wash it? We don't make a bracha when you wash your hands. Now, the Goyin holds that if you're going to eat a kazayas, you should wash your hands with a bracha, make an al-tiglas and then dip in and feed a kazayis. He says no different than the thing. Now, there's a very interesting bri halacha here. The Mechaber says, Noitel yadav l'tzorach tibul rishon v'lo yivarach al natila v'yikam Mechaber pachas mikazayis. Mechaber says take less than a kazayis. Now, the halacha is when we eat bread, we wash our hands before we eat bread, right? The halacha really is you're not mechuyev to wash your hands unless you can eat a kazayis. Unless you eat a kazayis, so some say even a kabeya you have to eat to wash your hands. Okay, if you eat less, you're not mechuyev to wash your hands. So the question is, why over here by the vegetable are we washing our hands with less than a kazayis? By bread, you only have to wash your hands if you eat a kazayis. By the vegetable, you're getting less than a kazayis. So in the first print of the Chavetz Chaim in Hilchas over there by Tibul, in our Chaim, so he writes over there that you only have to wash your hands if you eat a kazayis of the vegetable. Now, here he writes in the Bri Halacha, wait, in our halacha here, you're eating less than a kazayis, and it says you got to wash your hands. So he says, you see from here that you got to wash your hands even for less than a kazayis. That you have to, that only by a kazayis. And he says, in the second print, he wrote on the footnote that even less than a kazayis, you have to wash your hands based on this halacha. But he says, but wait a second, I found a Rashbatz. I found a Rashbatz that says that the Rambam says you have to eat a kazayis of karpus, and the reason is because otherwise you don't have to wash your hands. Okay, so he brings the machlokes. L'maisa, halacha l'maisa. So the reason why we don't eat a kazayis, as Mendel's pointed out, there's a reason why we don't eat a kazayis, not just because of washing hands. The reason why we don't eat kazayis is because we don't want to get into a shaila of a bracha achroina. Because when we make the bracha bori pri adama on the karpus, we have in mind the maror. Why do we have in mind the maror? Because perhaps the maror is not considered part of the Suda, even though we eat vegetables in the Suda. But since the maror is brought there for the mitzvah, perhaps it's not called part of the Suda. And therefore you may have to make a bori priyat, even though you washed already. By the time you eat the maror, you already ate the matzah. But some things which aren't part of the Suda, like if you eat an orange in the middle of the Suda, you'd have to make a bori priyat. So the question is, the maror considered part of the Suda? So if the maror is not part of the Suda, you need a bori pri adama on it. So when you make the karpus, you have in mind that bori pri adama for the maror. You have in mind to be yotze the maror. Now you have in mind to be yotze the maror, but if you make a bori nefashis in between, it's not going to work for the maror.